oh, I'm a boy that does beauty, and also I was moving to Korea.
I feel like you're someone who prides themselves in your ability to have remain authentic throughout this process.
Being prideful about it.
You think that I'm the most authentic person. I mean,
To be honest though,
Uh-huh.
sometimes I feel that way. I could never try to pretend,
uh-huh.
To not be myself. YouTube is not forever.
Can you explain what that means?
Real good fucking luck. It's a fucking jungle out there now. There's too many content creators. The ones I find that stand out the most are the ones that are.
Do you feel like you're being fully authentic?
I think if I ever.
Why does it make you uncomfortable when people want to be expressive? I mean, because you mentioned clinginess is one thing. Clinginess is one thing, and I think that's a turnoff for a lot of people. But I think there's a difference between clinginess and simply just expressing affection.
Because when I grew up, my real father, I was living with him until I was like 7. He spoiled the shit out of me. My stepfather, hell no. Because my stepfather was quite abusive growing up. I never really did anything to him. So why was he such an asshole from the beginning? It was barely 1 year to even know him, and he was treating me like a fucking rag doll. Like, why were you like that? This is where we make out.
Edward.
What's up, Daniel?
So, first of all, thank you so much for being here on my podcast.
Thanks for the invite.
It's really a pleasure to be able to talk with you again.
We literally talked to each other last night.
We did. We had a fantastic dinner.
Before that, I literally met you over the weekend?
Yes. So this is our third interaction.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed all the interactions that we had, and that's why I was so thrilled that you agreed to come on my podcast and be a guest. But for the people who are tuning into this podcast, who don't know who you are, I was wondering if you could provide for them a summary, just your own version of how you see your own brand and yourself, of who is Edward Avila.
Who's Edward Avila? Whenever I do shit like this, I remember when you know what KCON is?
What is KCON? I don't know.
It's that K-pop convention that's run by CJ every year.
Ooh, what is that like? Do they have concerts there? Like what do they do?
Concert Hagul. They'll do concerts in the evenings, and during the day it will be the convention. But they invite some of the biggest K-pop groups there for the concert. That's the main reason most people go. But sometimes I get before COVID, I would be invited every year, and they always want me to send them can you write a short about me? I'm I never know what to write, so I just write something really dumb and people take it too seriously. But me, 그냥 I'm 30. I'm turning 32 now. 32 years old.
32 years young.
I'm Filipino. Girl, say it. Just 32 years old. Filipino American. Grew up military kid. Came to Korea on a whim, to be honest, and YouTube eventually became my main thing. Beauty YouTuber.
Okay.
I guess. And these days I also do a little bit of a dabbling with K-pop idols and stuff, especially during COVID. Honey, the K-pop idols had nowhere to go, so they're like, "Let's go to Edward Avila's channel." So yeah, I'll do idol collabs every now and then, but mostly just Edward Avila being in Korea is how I tend to think about and describe my channel.
Okay.
I honestly just upload whatever I want to do. It's mostly beauty because I have such a strong interest in beauty and makeup and I love transforming. It's not even necessarily transforming. It's just lately I've been telling people whenever I do their makeup, I've been starting this sort of makeup pop-up shop lately, and I've always been obsessed with the way just one layer of foundation changes people. Because I grew up with the main reason I started YouTube is because I had really bad skin in high school, and it was around the time BB cream became a thing.
Okay.
Honey, all the BB cream, Casper, Ghost, neck a shade 28, over here shade 17. But still, I was like, oh my god, look, the dark circles, the acne is gone. But that's kind of where I started my my interest in makeup. And then I saw Miss Michelle Phan. She's my kind of who's the guy that you have that you like the podcast.
Oh, Stephen Bartlett.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your Stephen is Michelle Phan is mine.
Okay.
Of that. Like
I
she
see.
was like the OG. There was many other beauty gurus, but she was the one that blew up first.
I see.
Like the big name, like household name. And
Wow.
also because she was Asian, so I was like, oh my god, I can do that. But also for me, my angle was kind of like, oh, I'm a boy that does beauty, and also I was moving to Korea. Like, actually, it wasn't really moving. I
Okay.
was just there for the summer and winter. Even Korean Americans do this, where
Yeah.
every summer, winter for vacation they visit their family in Korea.
That's right.
약간 그런 느낌이었어. Because my parents were stationed here, right? So while I was going to college, I took one fucking like art class. I took fucking computer science. Because originally I wanted to be a video game designer. But at the time, there wasn't really any like solid like video game design degrees. It was mostly people that are in like graphic design or computer science that just happened to go into video game design. So there was no really big university or like majors or courses for that. So 좀 애매해서 I by the way, what is 애매해 in English?
I guess
I never know what to say that how
애매해 would be
ambiguous?
yeah, a little ambiguous. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that's like the best way to translate that.
Yeah. So I ended up just coming to Korea just for fun. My mom's like, well, since you're not really taking college seriously, it was community college. I was gonna do community college, like every major has like required classes.
That's right.
Yeah, required class 하고, and then I was
Yes.
gonna move to university. No, she wasn't. So I ended up going to Korea. My mom helped me find a part-time job on base. So I worked at. They have a PX at the Korean Army base, right?
PX? What is
PX,
that?
PX, like the post exchange, just like the
Ah.
마트, the
Oh,
mart.
I see.
Like
Okay.
it's basically like a Target or Walmart for military people. No
Got it, got it.
taxes.
Ah.
So I worked there as an ID checker. So that's literally I stood there for 3-4 hours at a time, just checking. Because the thing is, in Korea they had an issue with Koreans because there's some Korean nationals that work on base. They had an issue with them buying too much like spam. So
Like
that,
you mean the spam in the can? Like
in the can,
ah.
because it's so expensive in Korea, but so cheap in the U.S. Army because U.S. pricing, even cheaper.
Okay.
And so these Koreans would be asking soldiers to buy them
The spam in bulk.
in bulk. And so now they had to create like a ration system, where it's like you can only buy a certain amount. That's basically the gist of it. And I'm the one that has to check the ID. And normally, I've lived at other bases and they don't normally check. They just check your ID when you go into the army base. But here specifically, it's not just that. It's also you have to check the ID in the PX before you come in, and also when you have to do to 결제 to pay.
Oh, so you check the ID before they come into the
Yeah.
store and as
And the
they're
person,
about to pay.
and when they're
Okay.
paying, they check to see if you're not buying too many of anything.
Ah.
Right. So I did that for a long time, almost a year, I think, for like dirt pay, like nothing. Then later on, I ended up going to work at the after school youth center. Children after school services, basically like glorified babysitter.
Okay.
They always the managers up there always talk about don't call yourself babysitter. We're fucking babysitters. Basically, after they went to school, they went to our place until the parents were done with work to pick them up. Technically, we were supposed to be like teachers where we make lessons, but we didn't do that shit. The thing is, because I don't know if you know in Korea, the U.S. Army soldiers they come here, but the tour is always so short.
Ah.
So it would be like 1-2 years max.
Okay.
So the staff, because the thing is with the after school service, a lot of the staff is female, aka the soldiers' wives.
I see.
And so they'll only be there for like a year or two. And I pretty much for me, I've been there like the longest at our specific base because I'm not anyone's wife. I'm not moving anywhere, so I was just there.
Who were the students that you were helping? Were they Korean citizens or?
They're American.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, because there's a school on base.
I
For
see.
the U.S. soldiers' kids.
Oh, so it's the children of the people who are stationed in that base.
Yeah, pretty
Okay,
much.
So it's like a community all within the U.S. military base.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, there's some families that live outside base, but only because there's no apartments on. Those are mostly like single soldiers that are
see.
in the barracks.
Got it,
If you
got
had a family, they live in like the big apart. Girl, we had a nice ass fucking house, and the government paid for it.
Because it was like everything's U.S. sized in the military base, right? Because for people who haven't been to Korea, everything is a lot smaller here, especially when it comes to real estate and just portions, clothes.
Well, in general, because the base is tiny. The biggest one right now is Humphreys, and that's where everyone moved to. But there's Camp Casey, which is where I was at first, up in Dongducheon, and then I moved over to Yongsan later. But that's just people don't really live there. There's some houses there, but which is funny. We can talk about this later, but because they converted to like a public park now, so Koreans go there to take their cute little aesthetic picture. They're like, "Oh, I'm in America," because it looks America on base. But anyway, yeah, I was just taking care of the kids, of the soldiers, and because the staff kept moving, they're constantly changed, so they couldn't get any training. They had to learn how to do lesson plans, but nobody really teaches you. You kind of have to figure it out. They just tell you have to do this, and you're looking at the form like, okay, and they have to prove it. It's like so weird. So at the end of the day, basically, we were just playing with kids and just taking care of them, watching them, and feeding them.
Okay.
That's it. Summers.
And how old are these children on average?
At the time, I was taking care of elementary school.
Elementary school kids.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did every now and then have to go to the baby building, which is where it's like daycare, like for babies.
Oh, so you're just straight up like holding babies and changing diapers.
I was in there mostly because there's a thing where if you have a certain number of if you have a certain number of kids in a room, there has to be a certain number of adults, like a ratio, and I'm usually just there for the ratio.
I see.
Girl, I don't changing diapers. I don't do that. Usually the women in there will take care of that, and I just watch over the babies. But yeah, I was mostly in the elementary school and elementary school level building. And I was there as I was also doing YouTube. My whole thing was like, oh, I'm in Korea, you know. There wasn't really many creators like me. It's usually, at the time, I don't know if you know about them, Eat Your Kimchi.
Was that the name of a YouTube channel? Or
Honey, a Canadian couple, English teachers, but they made all this content about living in Korea, K-pop, you know, just like places you can go in Korea and Seoul. They were like the blueprint for English-speaking content creators making K content in Korea. Right, so for me, I was almost like that, but more so like there's just like a whole production. For me, it was just like, oh, I'm just a YouTuber living, you know, in Korea, and I work in Korea too. So that was kind of my angle.
Okay.
And then I was doing beauty. And then eventually, at one point, I ended up doing a video where I did this person's makeup, and the title was like, doing a Korean idol, a K-pop idol trainee's makeup. Because, honey, you would never find content. These days, lots of big YouTubers will collaborate with, you know, idols and do their makeup and shit like that. Or just collaborate in general. But back in the day, oh my God, a YouTuber working with like an idol trainee? That was like unheard of, I think. So that video really took off. And from then on, my channel really started to get pushed into people's, you know, algorithms.
For people who might not know what an idol or idol trainee means, can you just briefly explain, like, what is that?
K-pop idols are basically just like, you know, the Japanese system of idols, where it's like you have these singers, they should be singers, or dancers, rappers, or whatever. They train that. These are people that audition to be singers, basically, or performers.
Okay.
That go into entertainment companies, audition. If they pass, they get taken in, sign contracts. They train for years and years and years. It depends on whatever company they're going in. They can train from anywhere from like 6 months to fucking 10 years, whatever, to basically be like these idols that people look up to. Like they perform on stage, release music, all that.
Are they usually solo performers or in groups?
I think K-pop is mostly known for groups.
Okay, so they're joining a boy band or a girl group kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah, and the person I made a video with was a trainee.
Okay.
And I guess the world of K-pop was so secretive at the time, especially because there wasn't that much information about idols and stuff. Whenever we got tea about idols, it's always like, oh, right? So for me to have a trainee on there, it was like, I guess, a big deal. But girl, in the end, I found out he was like an ex-trainee or whatever. You know, he trained for like not that long. And also, there was some drama there because I kind of... I never talked about it really because I thought it was like so insignificant. But at the time, it really made me real. I feel like that was also the beginning of because I told you before, I was more extroverted and I like being friends with people and all that. I mean, I'm shy, but I was more open to being friends with people if I got to know them a little bit.
I guess we can all see how shy you are.
Yeah, super shy. But with this person, I feel like he was the start of me meeting people where I'm like, I guess I really don't match with this type of person because he would constantly just be talking about himself. Narcissism. basically. Narcissistic. Because every conversation was always about him. He's always, oh my god, he does this thing that I find just aggravating. He just constantly just look, oh my god, I'm so ugly. Like, oh. I'm like, girl, like.
This was the idol trainee that you had on your channel.
And I was like, girl, you look fine. Like, okay, and like, I don't know. And it wasn't a matter, like, I didn't ever, which could be a problem on my part. Whenever I'm annoyed by someone, I never really tell them. I just kind of like, and that's why I burn a lot of bridges, is because I just stopped talking to people. Because I don't have any reason to be like, I really feel like you're so like, like I don't want to go through that. So I just like try and sort of like,
just distance yourself from that person.
Yeah, which is why I probably done that to a few creators too. So they probably talk mad shit about me, but usually if I stop talking to them, it's because they gave me a reason to. Which, but the thing is, it's never really that big of a deal for me to like publicly be like, this person was so. I'm just like, okay, whatever. There's more people in the vision. They can meet other people, that would prefer to be with them. But I'm just like, ugh.
Okay.
So 그때부터 좀 my channel, people started being like, oh my god. I ended up watching your video because your shit would not stop showing up in my, suggested. Back then, the YouTube algorithm was much more different. And honestly, honey, good fucking luck, because it is so damn hard to get into anyone's algorithm these days. For me, I feel like I have a core audience already. So I have 1.5 million subscribers. Am I getting 1.5 million views per video? No, but it doesn't matter to me because I have the group of people. I'm still shocked when I meet people and like, I've been following you for like 9+ years. I'm like,
wow.
I have people that follow me since like, I don't know, around COVID. I have a very wide range. I have people really young. I have people that are much, much older. So I feel like I have a pretty wide, I'm just kind of like, me, along with like maybe two or three other people, I consider like the OG YouTubers like in Korea, like English speaking K content creators, legacy creators or whatever. And yeah, I've just been doing pretty much the same thing since then.
Okay.
Just makeup, vlogs every now and then. But yeah, my whole shtick has just been at Avila. Oh, actually, a lot of people don't know I live in Korea. Because I'm always, all you see is my head that's talking. And so I guess like the interior doesn't give obviously the interior, if you just look at my bedroom, it doesn't look like I'm anywhere besides my bedroom. But I'll be like, yeah, I live in Korea. They'll be like, well, I didn't know you live in Korea. Like if they run into me like at the cafe, they're like, Edward Avila, what are you doing? I'm like, bitch, I live here. Like, what? So.
Okay, well, thank you. That was actually a great, more in-depth summary than because you were saying at the beginning, you're like, I don't know what to say, and then you just were like, you just told this amazing life story. I was like, well,
only because usually if they're asking for a short bio, that's different.
I see.
But here we're sitting, we have time to talk about stuff.
Okay, so you're a YouTuber with 1.5 million subscribers, and you're mainly focusing on beauty content. So
I like to think so.
So you do collaborations with different creators and. You do makeup for them, or celebrities, you do makeup for celebrities and then things like that. You mentioned towards the beginning of talking about how you got started on this path that you started doing makeup because you felt like you had terrible skin when you were in high school. Is that right? So is that something that was an insecurity for you before that? Were you always focused on how you came across to others and how people perceived you?
I think so. But yeah, I think with most people in high school, acne makes anybody insecure. So it's weird because I had acne in middle school and high school, and I don't ever remember it being, I know it annoyed me, but I don't think I was ever like so hyper insecure about it. But at some point I did realize I do have to do something about it because my acne was so bad that it caused scarring by itself. You know when they're always like, don't pick your acne because it will cause scarring?
Right.
Mine would scar itself because it was so bad. And my skin, I think I got from my dad. He has really bad acne scarring, like pitted acne scarring. So I think that's where I got it. But then, at some point, and also at the time, there was no YouTube skincare videos. Honey, we got the 10-year-olds over at Sephora. Have you heard about that?
No.
Oh, honey. That's been a hot topic lately. Back then, we were like, oh, toys. Later on, video games. Girl, these days, what do the 10-year-olds want? Sephora skincare.
Wow.
Drunk Elephant skincare. Drunk Elephant's like a brand. They have like this thing of like, a lot of their skincare is, they encourage like skincare mixing or something to like mix their different products to like get to like depending on what you need for your skin. So Sephora, And also the packaging is super colorful. So honey.
To appeal to children intentionally.
No, it's adult skincare.
Oh, it's adult skincare.
It's meant for like older people, obviously.
And 10-year-old kids want this.
Because of TikTok, they've been seeing all this stuff. They're on the iPad babies or whatever. Now, instead of toys, they're all into skincare. The color packaging is super appealing to them. So they'd be taking the testers, mixing shit up, and it's like fucking up these stands. Anyway, I realized, I have to do something about my acne. I went on medication. It was Accutane. That shit that like literally makes your oil glands stop working.
Wow.
There's so many fucking side effects. It makes you depressed. It gives you horribly dry skin because obviously your oil glands aren't working. But my skin was fucking snatched. My skin was fucking as clear as fucking, I don't even know. It was really good.
So taking the medication cleared up your skin?
Really helped.
Okay.
근데 they've always said, if you stop this medication, there's like a 40% chance it will come back.
I see.
Sweetie, I was part of the 40%. And it came back really badly.
Came back with a vengeance.
Yeah.
Okay.
It came out real bad. So that around that time, that's when I was like introduced to like BB cream, honey. I would tell this story on my other stuff, but when I first got into buying makeup, people always ask me like, oh, when did you know you were gay? I've always known. I've never not known it. There was never a point where I'm like, do I like boys? It's like I've always only ever liked boys.
Okay.
But I didn't realize it was like a bad thing or like not normal until much, much later. And I really realized this when watching makeup tutorials. When I watched it, I'm like, oh, I want to buy makeup. I was never like, oh, I want to buy makeup, but I'm really shy. But for some reason, when I did go to buy the makeup, I was like, hi, my sister needs makeup. And we're the exact same skin tone. Me and my sister are completely different skin tones. But I was like, she kind of looks like me, so could you help me find like I think I wanted to find something to cover my dark circles, because dark circles started coming in. Yeah, I bought that. I remember the first day I wore it to school, because it was like a dual-ended Maybelline concealer, right? One end is supposed to cover the color. The other end was supposed to highlight the inner corner, because at the time, really bright under eyes were like popular. But if I'm barefaced, 갑자기 막 여기 너무 하얗고 막
it's like white here,
all white here, all right here. It just looks off. So at school, my one friend Daniel was like, his name is Daniel, little Mexican kid. He's like, "Are you wearing makeup?" And I was like, "No, what are you talking about?" I've never been more embarrassed. So I think from then on, that's why I really wanted to learn how to at least apply makeup well.
So I'm just curious, you knew that you were gay your whole life, but it was only until around high school that you started realizing that it was like socially taboo to be that way?
I guess so.
And then so that was why you...
Oh, do you know why? Growing up, I've always been in military schools, right? I told this to you yesterday. Military kids, I feel like most of the time, military kids are more open-minded, I guess.
Interesting.
Because they've grown up living in so many different parts of the world and traveling. I've always said kids that travel, and obviously traveling is like a luxury, right? But if you're in the military, you just have to travel. It's a great thing for kids because they learn. In one way, it's good because they get to experience so many different cultures and see so many different parts of the world, so they grow up being more open-minded with a lot of things. But also, it kind of sucks because you lose your friends every 2 years.
Right.
Honey, I could never keep down a best friend for more than a year or two. So, yeah, but it was in high school, my first time in public school. Honey, day one, I step out of that what was it, my parents' car or whatever, off at school. Yo, Ching Chong! Hey, Ching! Completely unprovoked. It was the first time I've ever experienced any sort of like, I don't know, like racism, whatever.
Where were you attending public school at this point for high school?
El Paso, Texas.
Ah, Texas. Okay.
It was real ghetto there. Specifically the school I went to. I was only there for a few months though, but I moved to another one which had. It wasn't a military school, but it was nearby the neighborhood where there's a lot of military families. So it still had that vibe of almost like an on-base military school, but definitely not as like a lot of weird people there.
Okay.
But.
So they could tell right off the bat that you looked foreign. You looked like an Asian person to them.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah. Asian, because the school is mostly Hispanic people,
I see.
right?
Were they Hispanic people who were making these racist comments at you, or was it
The one that called me Chinchas, yeah, he was.
Okay.
But it wasn't all of them. A lot of my friends at the time were Hispanic.
Okay.
And we were all in our little emo scene phase, whatever. So, and they loved Asians because they were like the otakus. They love their anime. So,
okay.
oh my god, even though I'm Filipino, you know, but it doesn't matter to them because it's all the same to them.
Right. Asian is Asian.
Asian is Asian,
Yeah.
right? So, did you ever have that where people like? I know now that K-pop is popular.
Right.
Like, girl, you can have, it doesn't matter what you're like, oh my god, you're Korean, blah, blah, blah. But did you ever have a point where those otakus are like, oh my god, you're Asian?
Yeah, it's so funny because I actually did a recording for another studio that does YouTube content about, Korean K-pop, that kind of stuff.
They always have foreigners on there?
They always have foreigners on there, right? And so I was kind of sharing with another person that I was filming with that I actually really appreciate K-pop because it completely changed the stereotype about Asians, and it actually gave people vocabulary about Asians that they just didn't have before.
Yeah.
Because it's very similar to you growing up I grew up in New Jersey, growing up in public school. There was no, oh, he's Korean and she's Chinese and that guy's Japanese. It was just Asian. He's Asian, you're all Asian.
Yeah.
Right? And it's the funny thing because when you come to Korea, that word just doesn't exist. Nobody says I'm an Asian person. It's always where the country of your ethnicity, right?
Yeah.
But absolutely, I had that where it was just like there's the Asian crew, there's the black crew, there's the white crew, and
Koreans especially love to stick together.
Yes, Koreans especially, yeah, and sometimes often actually at the expense of other Asian kids too. Like Koreans will have this thing where they'll be like, oh, like, we're not Asian, we're Korean, you know. So you guys all hang out with yourselves, but Koreans, like they there was definitely that once there was this influx of Korean immigrants to my middle school. So
Right.
I can very much understand where you're coming from with that whole experience.
And it's funny because it was my first time, because at the time I was not about K-pop. I was all about my J-pop. J-pop for life at the time. Whenever I went, if y'all know K2mblog.com, where we all went to get illegally download our K-pop, they had a mix of J-pop and K-pop. So whenever I passed, oh, who the fuck is Wonder Girls? Who the fuck is 4 Minute? Like, what the fuck is this shit? Until later, my friend got me into Kara. Honey, and also Sonushide.
Wow.
I was living, honey.
I haven't heard those names in a long time.
But definitely, I was still very much in my J-pop like era. But it was when I moved to Texas. When in the military, when you're moving to a new country, you got to stay in the military lodging first, so that they can find you a house. And we were in the lodging, and 어느 날에 갑자기 this 아줌마 came to our motel for some reason. I don't know how the hell she got on base, but she knocked on the door, and she was like, "Oh, please come to our church." And the thing is, my mom actually, I went to school in the Philippines in the 6th grade, and at the time, my mom and my stepfather were in Korea.
Okay.
They were stationed there. And so that's how my mom got familiar with Korean culture. And so my mom was like, Korean church? I'm down. And, in Korean church, they always have food at the end.
That's right.
Honey, honestly, I know my mom is Roman Catholic, so she's like, oh, yeah, church. But, honey, for me, sitting in the back, headphones on, PSP. The second I see everyone get up, I'm like, it's time to eat.
Oh, service is over? Okay.
Honey. And so that's how I got familiar with, along with, like, the Kara and the Sonushide, it was also the Korean church where I was like, experiencing, I guess, Korean culture because of the food. And also the dynamics of Korean American kids. I remember at the time, I don't want to generalize all of them, but I noticed very prevalent that they didn't care to be Korean. They wanted to be, you were talking about this.
Yes, we
you
talked
were
about this
very,
already.
like, I'm American. And you're really trying to separate yourself from, like, what is it? Immigrant, like, it sounds so political, like fresh off the boat.
The fobs, that's
the
right.
fobs,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
You really try, and this isn't just Koreans. I feel like a lot of people are like this.
That's right.
Try to really separate, like, oh, I'm American, right?
Yeah.
And they would not try to speak Korean at all, only ever English.
Right.
But honey, the second Big Bang 21 was really popping off. They're all like, oh, 왜? 너 방송인데?
I'm Korean,
like,
yeah.
okay, like, oh, now you want to be Korean? I just thought the shift was very interesting. But yeah, I thought the dynamics was interesting. And that was my first experience. And also the cattiness. I talk about this with my friend Eddie on my podcast. The cattiness, and I feel like this is a universal thing. The cattiness of the Korean community, like the youth.
Yeah.
The drama, honey, that happens at the Korean church youth groups. I don't know if you're ever involved in those.
Oh, yeah.
But sis, the drama. But it's always funny to me because we have this conversation about I hate fake people.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't hate them. It's just I try to avoid them. And I can easily like see them. So the mass. I love Jesus Christ. Christiana. But honey, the second they turn around, that is the ugliest effing skirt I've ever seen. It was very Regina George.
Wow.
You know,
Korean mean girls.
Korean mean girls. The dudes are always kind of like, I don't know. They're all kind of
douchey, trashy.
douchey or whatever. Not all of them. There are actually a lot. Actually, one of my really closest friends at the time. Shout out to Grace. There's always a Grace. There's always a Korean American Grace, right? Super super kind. She was definitely one of the ones though that was very like white girl, like Tumblr like vibes. But yeah.
So how was that for you? Because this was the time when you were starting to notice that being gay is taboo, and so you're kind of being picked on at school because of your Asian heritage. And
well, I don't want to say picked on because it was the only. I didn't really have too many moments like that.
Okay.
But definitely those moments, if they did happen, they would stand out so much to me because I never really had that growing up. Up until then.
Okay.
But yeah, usually at the time, especially in Texas, I would usually only be like the older Asian in the class. And I think I got lucky in that I wasn't, I mean, besides the one time where I was like, no one ever really singled me out for that. But definitely I felt a sort of like, it was probably also a combination being really shy, of just feeling almost like I'm like, not outcast, but I feel like, you know, no one was really like trying to come over to me.
I see.
You know, until I had to find my own friend group.
Okay. So how was the reception of your peers and your church community to you being gay?
Well, the thing is, I never really talked about it.
Okay.
Unless, I never really was always like, I'm a faggot, I like cock. Whatever. I mean, that was really me back in the time, but I never really talked about it. I think if I ever,
they couldn't tell with the makeup that you started putting on
at that time I didn't really wear makeup. It was mostly styling, but even the styling, like emo scene kids were like popular back then, so they're just like, oh, another wannabe emo scene kid.
I see.
Yeah, I don't think. Really...
So they took it more as like an emo thing than as like, oh, he's
I guess
gay
so.
kind of thing. Okay.
But by the time I really, really started to wear makeup, I was already out of high school anyway. I already graduated. Right, so.
Okay. So you mentioned that it was during your high school years that you started doing YouTube. So you said that you did makeup because you wanted to cover your own skin. How did that transition into you doing YouTube videos?
Well, originally, it wasn't. I didn't start off because the timeline of my YouTube. I opened my YouTube account in 2008 when YouTube first opened, right? And I told you I had one of the first few Nokia, like, slides up and there's a camera that
there's a
reveals.
camera, yeah. Was it the one that would flip kind of sideways, like?
Honey, 120p, like fucking
120p.
Yeah, but what was the file type back then? It was like it was a VGA,
something like that. Yeah.
So it was so bad. Like I can probably even like download it. You can put in the video here. Like, it was like shitty. It was nothing. It was just me with my friends. This is in Germany, and it's just me and my friends hanging out. And just like, what are you guys doing? Like, just random like 1 minute, 2 minute shit. And then later on, I would watch channels. Do you know Smosh?
I do remember Smosh.
Smosh. Like I was super inspired. Oh, honey, this is a random tidbit, but I remember Smosh came out with a video called Dolls. Where like, was it Anthony? Who's the other one? Anthony and Ian. Okay. Anthony was playing with dolls or whatever in his room, private like little girl dolls. Then Ian comes in, he's like, oh. Me and my sister made like an Asian parody of that. It was literally the same thing, but just me and my sister.
Sure. And
they watched it. They commented like, oh my god, this is so funny. I was like, we made it, bitch. We're fucking YouTubers now. So I did go through the path of trying to do like funny sketch, like relatable comedy. I remember I did one video where it was like the types of people on the internet, and it was just think about it, it's so fucking cringe. But I thought I put a lot of effort to that's what I felt like. I'm like, I have a sense of like humor, like I have a little bit of comedy sense, right? that was kind of like the start of my meme crackhead sort of like origins, I suppose. But then it was when I discovered Michelle Phan and my acne and like me wanted to cover that. That's when I transitioned into beauty content because I wanted to teach. Like, oh, I bought this BB cream, like a review.
Okay.
I wanted to review stuff.
Okay.
I did a few hair tutorials.
Uh-huh.
Oh god, not the hair tutorials, but I remember I did some fucking like men's Valentine's Day makeup. Like, I was so fucking cringe, but yeah, that was kind of like the timeline of my YouTube channel.
Okay.
Like just random vlogs, attempt at comedy shit, and then it went into the beauty.
Okay. So there is this very well-known entrepreneur. His name is, I can't think of it at the moment. I guess he's not too famous. He's located in the UK. And he is a serial entrepreneur, meaning that he's always starting up new companies, and that's his passion. He loves starting businesses, getting them going. And he mentioned in a podcast where he was invited as a guest that if you are someone who wants to start your own thing, a good place to look at is sometime in your history, the moment that you felt you had a sense of identity that was independent from your parents or independent from some authority approval around you. And he says that usually entrepreneurs, when they find that whatever business that they continue, they stay consistent with it and they succeed, it's somehow linked to that emotional connection they have with that moment. And as I was listening to you talk about the beginning of your YouTube career, what I heard was for most of your life before that, you identified yourself as a shy kid, not really able to express yourself. So the start of the YouTube kind of became where you realized I have a sense of humor, I have personality that I want to share.
Yeah.
And then you also had this experience with makeup. And so it became the combination of YouTube giving you this outlet to express your personality, and then you combine that with makeup, and then that was your niche.
And like I was saying, back at the time, it was purely just for creative outlet reasons. You could not make money on YouTube. It wasn't until like 2011, 12. I know at the time that I started, you cannot make any money. It wasn't until I was in Korea where I could start monetizing my stuff. So yeah, it was definitely more so just like I had like an idea that I thought would be funny, and I was like, I had my mom's little Sony digital camera. I was like, I want to film this, so I did, and yeah, it was definitely. I noticed definitely a lot of the people. What I've noticed over the years is a lot of YouTubers, especially back then, that started YouTube, were just like that. They have something they want to make, and it's because they're really shy. With people, they're super shy, but on camera, they'll be awkward at first. But if they find it easier to talk to a camera because they're technically by themselves, right?
Right.
For me, I think a lot of my awkwardness at the time was because I knew my sister was in the room next door. If I knew I was alone in the house completely, I think I would have been totally fine with just, filming. But definitely over time, I became more and more comfortable being in front of a camera. But yeah.
After you realize that you can express your personality on YouTube, it's totally a creative thing. What was the process like of growing your YouTube channel? Is that something you realized from the beginning that you wanted to do?
Creating my channel and like building up my audience, I don't think it was ever in my intentions to be like, I'm gonna be a fucking huge YouTuber. I literally just made videos because I wanted to make videos. My friends every now and then be like, oh, you have this many subscribers, and like they'll update me on my subscriber count, but I don't think I ever really, like, even till now, when I hit 100,000, when I hit 1 million subscribers, I thanked everyone, but I never thought it was that big of a deal. Even my fucking gold button.
Wow.
I never received my silver button. I don't know what the fuck happened to it, but my gold button, it's just sitting up there in my little cabinet closet thing. Like, I don't.
Wow.
When Koreans, especially when they say, oh, 대박. Oh, 혹시 사진 찍어도 돼요? I take a picture of a gold button. I'm like, I guess it's like not to me.
The gold button is for 1 million subscribers.
1 million.
Okay.
But I never was like I have to hit this. I have to hit this milestone. For me, it was just like, oh well, I can make money from YouTube now. It's my job. If you can help me pay the bills, if you can help me put food on the table and pay my rent, that's totally fine. But for me, the priority was always like just making videos that I wanted to make. Yeah. So I don't ever think there was like a like, oh, I need to really build up my, like, I'm sure there was to some degree like, oh, I want this video to do well or whatever, but I don't think I was like breaking my back over it.
So listening to you talk about this process and then getting to that point where you hit 1 million subscribers, I guess maybe because for me, I'm completely starting out. When I imagine that 1 million mark, I think, "Oh, I've made it, right? That is what
That's so
success
fascinating to
looks
me.
like." But as I'm listening to you, I just don't hear that, and it makes me curious to know, within your value system, how do you define success? What is a successful life then to you?
Me? For me, it's just as long as I can live comfortably. I never feel like I have to, be living in excess. If I can, I've always been, because when I grew up, oh my God, you and your little psychology can analyze this, or whatever. But my father, my real father, the Navy one, uh, I was living with him until I was like 7. He spoiled the shit out of me. Whatever I wanted something, he would buy for me. But then when my mom divorced and remarried to the army guy, would not buy me shit. I'm not allowed to buy anything. He doesn't want me, food. That's it. Very rarely do I ever receive gifts. Whenever I wanted a video game, my dad would get it for me. My stepfather, hell no. I get buy new 1 or 2 video games a year. That's kind of like how I always saw my childhood is like which video games I bought throughout my life. Because whenever I had a game, it was like that new era of my life. Because that's the only thing I ever did. Because I'm such a big gamer. So I would always define my life in eras by those video games. But now, what the fuck am I talking about?
So I was asking you about what your value system is and how you define success.
Oh, right. So with that, I think if I'm able to just like put like like I was saying, pay the rent, pay my phone bill, put food on the table, I can buy the makeup that I want to buy if I need it. I can buy the video games that I want. Like that's to me, that's luxury to me. Especially being Filipino in the Philippines. When you live in the Philippines, you see people struggling. I know, especially Koreans, they love to say, oh my God, Philippines is beautiful. Just because, go, they talk about the vacation area. Try living like in the Philippines, right? So, yeah, whenever I see these like YouTubers that are like living in complete excess, like especially in LA, I'm just like, ugh. I mean, that'd be nice to live like that, but I don't feel like it's necessary.
Could you live like that if you wanted to?
Um, I guess, but I think if I had that crazy level of money, I think I would just be buying like a bunch of. Because the problem with me is that I have so many different interests. I love makeup. I love buying new makeup, using it once, never using it again. I love buying video games. I love technology. I love buying, video game systems. I love upgrading my camera for no damn reason. I can have one camera, but I have so many accessories for that I don't need. But I just love and I feel like this is almost like a response to growing up for a long time. Most of my life was with my stepfather, so I guess it's almost like pande. 약간.
Right.
He didn't buy me shit, so I'm gonna buy myself shit.
Okay.
Also, my mom is not good with money, so I probably got that from her. So I love, and I have so many different interests. I love buying food. I told you I eat to survive, but I think it's mostly I want to try new things so I can find, because when I find something I like, I just stick to it. Sometimes I want to expand, my stuff. So I'll buy new foods to try. So I'm always constantly running out of money because I've always all these interests. So yeah, I think that's what I would do if I had that crazy level of money. But in terms of like being comfortable, being happy, and like even now I'm fine. Yeah, I've never been the type of where I'm like stressed out about like, oh my God, I need to make I have to make this much content this month to make this amount. Like, whatever.
So for you, success is being able to do work that you enjoy,
Yeah.
to be able to make a living off of it, and because you've met those requirements, you just view your life as a success.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. So if you're at a point now where if your life were just to continue on as it is, you would be happy?
Yeah. People always ask me like, oh, YouTube isn't forever, which is true. YouTube is not forever. Is there anything you want to do? I'm like, maybe just be a makeup artist or something. Like, I'm not the type to look super far into the future, which is probably not a good thing. But yeah, I never, linger on stuff like that.
That's an interesting point you said. You said YouTube is not forever. Can you explain what that means? Why is YouTube not forever?
Well, most people especially I think especially I've noticed a lot with Korean YouTubers, they build up their YouTube channels so that they can create other businesses, whether it be their own makeup brand, whether it be their own business, whether it be their own like they just want to be a celebrity on TV because a lot of them turn into that. But for me, I created my Avila is like just a YouTuber, and I feel like that's really how it should just be. I feel like if I ever try to move on to anything else, it's like I'm forgetting my roots, And I've noticed this pattern with a lot of YouTubers. They try to do other stuff, and they completely abandon the original fan base, I guess, or the subscribers. And then, actually, I remember I was partying in Apgujeong, and there was this really very intoxicated Gyopo girl. I was with two other girls, and they were trying to take care of her. Because we were all worried about her because she's just by herself. And we were like, "Where's your friends?" They're like, "I don't fucking know. They like fucking abandoned me." So in my head, I was already like, "This girl is like emotionally damaged," because the whole time she was talking to my two gal pals, right? But whenever I'm like, "Oh, do you need help?" She'd be like, "Shut up, fucking shut up." And I guess she hated men. So I was like, "Okay." But it turns out we were sitting in the car on the way to, I guess, to Hongdae, I think. She was like, "Do you know a YouTuber named Avila?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "You kind of look like him." I was like, that because that's me. And she's like, "Oh my god, I used to watch you, but then you became too famous." And I was like, honestly though, I kind of get her. Even for me, whenever I have a K-pop group that I like, when they blow up, I suddenly lose interest. And I think it has something to do with like that thing you're talking about, like the hero thing.
The hero's journey.
Hero's journey. I notice this a lot with people on shows like American Idol or like competition shows. Regular, average Joe, regular person, auditions. It's like, oh my god, they're such a good singer, and they're just an average person like me. They, they have their journey through the show, they blow up, and then people forget about them. Because if they like win the show, which is why I notice usually the winners of these shows don't do as well as actually like the runner-ups. Right. So when they become successful, they sort of not fall off, but it's just people kind of almost lose interest because the fantasy is gone. And for me, I've always, because there was a period of time where I noticed that I was almost getting like yeonyeonbyung,
celebrity
illness, which is basically like you're letting the fame get to your head or whatever. Luckily for me, I had friends that stopped me in my tracks, and also myself. The idea of me being like, yeah, and like was kind of cringe to me. So I don't think I ever got too bad. Whenever I went to KCON, said hi to everyone, always took a picture with everyone. I remember I tried to go from the green room to the bathroom, literally like a 10-second walk. It turned to a 45-minute fiasco because because the green room is here, the bathroom is here, and one of the panel rooms is right here, so everyone's outside in the line waiting. One person, oh my god, Avila! Next thing you know, hold on, which is I don't mind. I really have to use the bathroom, but I don't mind because I appreciate the fact that people watch my content because they're paying for my rent. Right. So when I noticed I was almost starting to get these feelings of yeonyeonbyung, I was like, I need to cut this off. And I feel like a lot of YouTubers, I told this to you yesterday, comments, reading stuff about you online, that really contributes to that. That's why for me, I stopped reading all that stuff and just focused totally on the content. And that's why I think I'm able to be where I am today, where I still have people that have been watching me from way back then. And I'm able to just focus on what I want to do, which is just make content that I like to do.
Right.
I'm never really like a stickler for like views and like for me, if I'm like I told you yesterday, if I'm happy, if I watch the video back myself, I'm like, oh, this is funny. I remember that time in my life. Then I think it was a successful video.
Yeah.
And yeah.
It's a really interesting point that you bring up because I think that people have this idea about success. And that could be financial success or it could be career success. If you're a musician, it means that, you've just been signed or whatever. Yeah. And deep down, what every person wants at the end of the day is to feel
His love.
belonging and
love.
connection, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think that people have this idea that if I make it there, that's when I'll be loved. That's when I will guarantee I never have to worry about being rejected. I never have to worry about someone saying, oh, you're not good enough to be loved. And so they put it on this pedestal, right? But I
It's
think
for anything in life and not just being a YouTuber.
right, for anything in life, for anything in life. And I think that what people fail to realize is that what creates those genuine connections with people in the first place is actually the opposite of success, right? It's not this is what I've accomplished and this is how well I've done that makes you appear human to someone, but it's this is what I'm going through now, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a sob story, but it's just a simple admission of I still have to eat and I still have to shit just like everybody,
Yeah.
right? The Queen of England, bless her soul, she's now at peace, right? But she shat, right? Shitted, shat, I don't know. Beyonce shits, right? BTS, every member takes a shit, right? It's just the simple reminder of that truth that that's what unites us in our humanity, right? Is the parts of ourselves that we're not so proud to show in front of everybody.
Yeah.
And I think that just like you said, whether it's American Idol or someone who blows up, when they lose touch with that aspect of their humanity, I think that that's where they lose connections with people who supported them, because I think at the end of the day, even from a viewer's perspective, what they want is the connection, the human connection with that. And it seems like you've been able to maintain that really well. And I think that for you, that's still the most important part of your journey. Would you say that that's correct?
Yeah, I think so. A pattern I've realized is, I don't know about celebrities because it's different, but I think I'm more so speaking from the perspective like a social media influencer, because we're able to share more freely than like a celebrity would. But I've noticed this pattern of people that really build a big audience online, and the conversation I always see is like, oh, I used to watch them but now they're just so like, I don't know how I feel about that though, because you can't really be the same your entire life, both in real life and on social media, because you're a human, right? You change,
right?
And there's no way that suddenly blowing up on social media won't change you in any way. So I'm always constantly on the lookout and trying to figure out what is that essence that keeps people both grounded, but not, because some people really fake trying to be like real.
Yeah.
Or like they're like, I'm relatable too, guys.
Right.
Like it almost comes out like they're trying too hard.
Yes.
So I'm always trying to strike that balance. So for me, I think it's just about being not trying to be anything other than how you're feeling even in that moment. I think 어쩔 수 없는 게, the thing you can't really do anything about is how people perceive you. So even though technically to yourself you feel the same as you were like 3-4 years ago, some people might be like, oh, you seem different. 어쩔 수 없는 것 같아. Maybe your interests might have changed a little bit, but I think it's mostly about the people that really like almost like grew up with you in a way, that know your true essence. Like, oh, he's just doing this at this point of his life. He's still pretty much the same person. I think that's kind of like a point that I've always found interesting about people on social media. Especially, I'm thinking of people like Emma Chamberlain, where she grew up being super relatable. And like, oh my gosh, she's like a regular girl from, I don't remember where she's from, very like normal girl. Then she moved to LA all of a sudden, and then she became like an LA girly. Honey, now she's on the red carpet. She's at the Met Gala interviewing celebrities. And I don't blame her for changing a lot, but it's just I find it so weird when I see people on these threads on Reddit talking about how like, oh my god, she's so unrelatable now, and like, but I'm like, well, that's what happens when you live in LA and you blew up on social media. 어쩔 수 없어. And also this is so long ago that she blew up. Of course she's gonna change. You know.
Do you feel like in her case, I'm not familiar with her or her work, but in her case, do you feel that she lost her authenticity because of the way that she blew up?
From what I don't watch every single one of her content, but comparing it from back then to now, I think this almost happened with me, is that back then, especially when you're growing, specifically the middle of the 2010s, that really like overly energetic, like, hey guys, yeah,
Right,
like
right, right.
YouTuber vibe.
Yes.
We all had that, but now as we're older, we're just not, we don't have energy for that, right? So from my perspective, I mean, I think I'm just seeing this as from the perspective of a YouTuber. I think the way she ended up is like normal.
Okay.
Of course, different from back then, but
Right.
I think she just, chilled out 됐어. 차분하게 됐어. She's just chilled out now. Same thing with me. I'll have my more, crackhead whatever moments, but I'm not as like as before, right? So when you got these people doing like these TikToks and these challenges, and there was like, come on, Edward, high tension, high tension. I'm just like, like I don't know. I find that too cringe. If I try, it comes off as like I'm trying too hard to, be like too energetic for something. So
Another thing I'm curious about is I feel like you're someone who prides themselves in your ability to have remained authentic throughout this process. Or at least on camera, to the best of your ability.
Right, but being prideful about it.
No, I don't mean when I say you pride yourself in it, I don't mean to say that you think that I'm the most authentic person. I mean,
to be honest though, sometimes I feel that way because I'll see people that like you can tell that they're putting on a face for camera,
right?
And it's not me being like prideful. It's more so just I feel bad for them because I could never do that for myself.
Sure.
When I do. At one point, I was doing like e-commerce with Amazon or whatever.
Okay.
It was like this thing with SBS. We were trying to do some like sell K-beauty. So it was during the pandemic.
Okay.
Right. So they were trying to do overseas like online shopping. And I was like, you're doing basically shopping, like TV shopping. 비슷한.
I see.
Right. I was the host or whatever. I had a guest. My guest was really good at emceeing. She's Korean, so she's like very like Jopo, right? So she speaks English, but the vibe was very like Korean home shopping. But for me, that is not my style. So you can really clearly see the difference between the way, we not act, but the way we try to portray ourselves, on that sort of platform. But yeah, definitely in that aspect. I think it's more so just like I feel bad. I could never try to pretend, to not be myself.
Yeah. But, and what I'm curious about is, and I think this is really relevant for us in today's generation, where everybody is surrounded by media. We're surrounded by screens all the time.
Remember back when iPads became a thing and they started introducing it into schools?
Right.
We were all at the bed. We're like, oh my god, this is the future. Worst decision.
Yes.
Worst fucking decision.
And I'm curious why, because I have my own thoughts about it, but why do you feel like that was the worst decision?
There's many aspects I feel like, but definitely the thing I've always felt like a lot of kids these days especially are missing out on is I don't want to say normal childhood because that could change, the definition of that can change over time.
Right.
But for me, I grew up where we had our windows open and your friends would pop on over to your window and you'd all, hang out, just talk to each other, call on the phone,
right?
Speak for hours on that fucking land. Girl, remember this?
The landline, yeah.
Remember this? Carrying this. And I feel like that really helped build like, although I'm super shy now, back then I was super extrovert as a kid, and I feel like because of the way kids grow up now on the screen, I feel like also it comes down to the parents. I feel like you can grow up in a generation where we're constantly surrounded by screens. It's just I feel like the parents these days aren't tailoring it in a way where it can be like a supplement, like a thing in addition to. It's literally become a way like parents don't want to take care of the kids now. They just throw a fucking. I've seen it before, like working with kids. The parents just give them an iPad, done.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't know.
It's the easier way out of it. Yeah.
I guess so. And it sucks because I don't want to invalidate the way some of these kids grow up. It's just that it just really created like a line where it's like, oh, you can tell these kids grew up this way and these kids grew up this way.
So what I'm curious about is, from a third-party perspective, we can clearly see the effects that the rise of social media and increased screen time is having on people all across the board, whether it's young children, 10-year-olds who want, Sephora, skincare products instead of toys, all the way up to, you know, my grandma who is in a geriatric hospital. And I would say probably 80% of her waking hours, she's just staring at a screen because she can't use her legs. That's what she's doing. So it's easy to see the effect that this is having on other people in society. But you're someone who's been having your own version of the screen time, except you're on the opposite end. You're the one who's creating
I kind of had half and half. Growing up, I had that analog lifestyle.
Right.
And I grew up with the internet too.
Right. But what I mean is that for someone who is not watching the content but actually making it, I wonder if there's also a similar cost that comes.
I'm contributing to it.
Not that you're contributing it to it, but I mean the effect that it had on your life.
My life.
Right? And
making the content.
Right. And what I mean by that is you spent countless hours in front of a camera. And when you're in front of a camera, you're the one who is controlling the entire interaction, right? Not only controlling it from the live perspective, you get to choose the angle, the lighting, exactly what you're going to say, and the timing of things. You also get to go back and you get to edit it.
Yeah.
So that the finished product looks exactly the way that you want that to look, and you sound exactly the way you sound, more or less. And then you publish that, and that is the interaction that people are getting with Edward. But face-to-face interactions don't work like that.
Yeah.
So I wonder, does that make you feel uncomfortable when you're interacting with people and you're about to get closer where you can't control all of that? Has that affected you?
I don't. That's actually a really interesting question. But as you're asking me this question, I don't think so, because the comment I often get when I meet people is like, "You're literally the same as you are in your videos." I'm like, am I supposed to be any other way? if I'm editing something, the only thing I'm ever editing out is my my uhs, and like me stuttering or me messing something up, like my words up. But other than that, you know, I pretty much get what you get from my videos. I think personally,
what you see is what you get with Edward. Okay.
I think if I'm going to be prideful about something, that's what I'm proud about. I never want to be in a situation where people are talking behind me, who are like, "Oh my god, he's actually fucking like so different in person." Maybe my face might be different, but like in terms of interacting with you, I kind of like it when people are like, "Oh my god, you're just like your videos." I'm like, yeah, that's what I hoped.
Okay.
Right.
So that brings me to another thing I wanted to ask you about is you have this huge following on YouTube, and you've made it from an objective metric for anybody who's watching YouTube would say, "Oh yeah, if you've passed 1 million subscribers, like you're there."
Yeah.
And you've also described this celebrity experience you had of people just crowding around you as you're trying to get to the bathroom.
Yeah.
So as a young man who hasn't gotten there, I imagine that when I'm there, my DM is gonna be flooded with
Horny young girls.
horny young women, and I'm just gonna get to take my pick, you know, and I'm sure, but I'm gonna get to take my pick of the women that I'm attracted to, and just boom, like relationship. You know, that's the sort of fantasy that I have here. What has that been like for you? What does your love life look like as you made it to this celebrity status?
I always talk about this, and it's really tired at this point, but it really is like a thing for me where I have a video of this on my channel. One of my videos that did really well is where I dated a K-pop idol trainee.
Oh.
It's always these fucking trainees. They really be fucking up my life. No, I dated, he said he was an idol trainee. Obviously he's not in the end, because he lied about everything. He lied about his whole life. But I met him because he was a subscriber. And it's funny because I met him at a fan meeting with me and another YouTuber, but this event was closed. You can only get up to like 30 people, and he wasn't one of the 30 people, but fucking he arrived at the place anyway, and one of the staff was like, "Oh yeah, you can just come in." That fucking bitch. She fucked it up for me. But anyway, that's kind of how it started. But because of that relationship, I find it hard to not only trust, regular people, whatever, but for him, because I know he was a subscriber, it really fucked up my way, like in general, I think. If I on the apps, Grindr, Jack, Tinder, whatever, if the first message, "Oh my god, I love your videos," even if this person is exactly my type, whether it be physically or like I don't know, if I read the profile, I'm like, oh, they seem like we could match.
Uh-huh.
They could be video gamers too as well. But the second they're like, oh man, I love your videos, I'm immediately just turned off.
Why is that? I'm curious.
I think it's just because trauma from that relationship. I want to say trauma where I'm like, but it's trauma just like, oh god, another one of these.
So what was it about that relationship that turned you off so much to this idea of dating someone who watches your content?
It was just kind of weird for me knowing that they kind of know more. In the process of dating, you are trying to get to know someone, right? Mm-hmm. But he pretty much already knew me in a way, because he watched my videos.
Right.
I think he watched my videos for a while, because he would bring up videos where I'm like, how the fuck are you still, it wasn't like, oh, I recently subscribed. It was like a while. But in me trying to get to know him, it wasn't even 3 dates in, and he was already like, can we date now? I'm like, and I very much hesitated at the time. But I think at the time I was just lonely.
Okay.
So I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. In my head, I think it was like, oh, yeah, we can make it official, but I guess I get to know you as we're dating, which mistake number 1. Actually, mistake probably number 3, 4, 5, because way past when I should have just cut it off. So now, when someone I meet, like, honestly, I don't go to clubs really as much. Like last year, I was going often, but not these days. And even if I do go to a club, I go to the straight club, honey. My ass, this is going to sound ghetto, but you're going to find my ass at Thursday party.
Oh, Thursday party. Wow. Okay.
I love a good straight club, because I like hip-hop.
Okay.
Right? I feel like it's easier for me to move to that than, like, head-banging, like, EDM. I can't do that.
Okay.
K-pop is fun, but, girl, the clubs that are popular these days for K-pop, the lines are too damn long.
Okay.
But, I don't really go to clubs. The general places that you go to, I don't go to an office. I don't really go to 결혼식. I know a lot of people meet
weddings.
Yeah, a lot of people tend to meet their boyfriends, girlfriends at weddings because so many people come.
Right.
I don't really go to those. So what do I have? Apps. On apps. In Korea, I'm not really much of like a popular type to be, like the way I look. I'm a foreigner too. So if someone messages me like, oh, I love your videos or whatever, for all you know, they might just be saying that to say hi. They're not trying to like fuck me or whatever, or date me. They just want to say, oh, I know you. But yeah, when I hear that, I'm already like, oh, because there's that whole like, what is it, that power imbalance, power dynamic thing.
I see.
Conversation on the internet between, creepy like influencers will do that to like their, impressionable fans or whatever.
Right,
they think they're hot. They're like, oh yeah, you want me to, like, I'm not really into that.
Okay. So for you, is it that power imbalance, or is it this element of you don't get to control how much a person you're not thinking about romantically knows about you? Because
I think it's both.
It's both of those things for you.
It's a combination. I don't even think about it too hard. There's something that switches in my brain where I'm just like, thank you. And that's it. Yeah.
So we talked a little bit yesterday about, because I asked you what did you feel like were some really impactful moments in your life that kind of affected the way that you view relationships? Because even in today's conversation, you kind of mentioned it earlier when you were talking about your story, that you've burned bridges along the way, and you've just like cut people off. And I don't think that there's anything weird about that. I mean, I would be lying here if I didn't say that even now on my phone, you'll find contexts that are blocked, right? I think if everyone's honest, we live in that era, the blocked era. Someone's blocked. Someone in your history is blocked, right? Yeah. But you mentioned that for you feel like that's happened a lot. You've burned bridges, and you've kind of created these narratives in your mind about, there's that person that's probably saying really bad things about me behind my back, right? But the thing is, at the end of the day, that's a narrative, right? It's something we don't know for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, where does that come from for you?
I don't know. I think it just built into my personality, this like insecurity of like, I always want to leave a good impression on people, and if I get any sort of sign from them that they might be like go home behind my back, it's probably more so just like not trusting people in that, always thinking the worst situation. They're gonna leave and they're talking mad shit about me somewhere. That's not every single person, but I don't know. I feel like I'm more prone to thinking that way.
Do you see yourself in like a happily committed relationship at some point in your life?
Happily committed? I think so. I think I can. I think the issue is just I'm so I feel like I'm so hyper aware of like what I think will be a good match for me. The second that anybody that I meet strays away from that, like what I think would be match well with me, I'm like, we're not gonna work out. Even though our relationship's technically supposed to just like work on them or whatever. I'm like, I don't want to bother it. I don't want to deal with this. So maybe we'll just be friends. But yeah, I've noticed that happen a lot.
Okay.
With me when it comes to meeting someone that could, I guess, potentially be someone I might be dating.
What's the thing for you that gives you that sense of, oh, this is not going to work out?
If it's signs of like being overly clingy, being too emotionally dependent, I don't know. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that one of the reasons why you love spending so much is that you had this moment in your life where, growing up with your dad, he lavished his love for you through buying you gifts. And then when your parents had a divorce and then you started living with your stepdad, he was the opposite, where he was very frugal with, his spending for you. And this is no secret. To anybody who's watched any kind of self-help or psychology content, you know that the way that you are treated as a child, it all comes out as an adult. Right? That this is no secret to anybody at this point.
Yeah.
But I do think that sometimes people underestimate the extent to which we're sort of making up in our adult lives for the ways that we felt that we lacked as children, right? And I can really resonate with you because I had a really close relationship with my dad up to when I was in 4th grade. And this is like super surprising for people who, first of all, have met my dad, and secondly, who just know the typical Korean father. Up until 4th grade, my dad was very expressive with his love. This is not to say that he was a perfect father by any means, but he was very expressive. I mean, he would come into my room while I was like playing with my toys, and he would just start tickling me from behind, right? Or he would just start mimicking the noises that I was making as they played together. And then, I would get really embarrassed and I'd be like, "Appa!" And then we'd get into like a playful like wrestling match. And I mean, he would like kiss me on the cheek. He would let me sleep next to him at night, even though my mom was like, "No, don't let him in. He needs to sleep in his own bed." My dad was like, just let him in. And then, eventually my mom would be the one to leave the bed, go sleep on mine, and I'd be sleeping next to my dad. We had this very loving relationship. My dad was my hero, my superhero. And then in 4th grade, to this day, I don't know why. I can't explain. I've tried so many times to figure out some kind of psychological, logical reason why there was this shift in our dynamic. But in 4th grade, suddenly my dad was not my dad.
Really?
All of the affection stopped. And there was no more kisses on the cheeks, no more, making fun of me while I was playing with my toys. It just became criticism.
Really?
Like the only thing that my dad could say to me or notice about me was what I was doing wrong.
Really?
Like the typical Korean father. And suddenly he couldn't express warm emotions to me anymore. The only thing that he could express was disapproval and anger.
This is so random for it to happen in 4th grade
So
specifically.
random. So random. To this day, I try to think, what was it in his life that shifted, was it like a change in his career? Did he start getting busier? The only thing that makes sense to me is in 4th grade, my paternal grandfather passed away. So my dad's dad passed away. And I know that my dad had a horrible relationship with his father. So it might be related to that somehow, but for me, that doesn't explain why he suddenly started treating me differently.
Yeah.
But, the way that affected me is now when I'm in relationships, it could be any relationship, it could be a friendship, a romantic relationship, there's always this little voice in the back of my head, and the only language that the voice speaks is anxiety. And it'll just turn on at these random moments when I feel like I'm going to get abandoned.
Really?
Because I feel that in a sense that's what my dad did to me. You know, it was so traumatic for me
Yeah.
that I remember in 5th grade, 6th grade, I used to have it wasn't like a fantasy. It was like a actual thought where I'd be lying down, going to bed, and thinking, the man who's living in my house right now, he looks just like my dad, but he's not my dad.
Really?
I think someone took my real dad and replaced him with whoever this guy is. He looks like him, but he's not my dad because he feels nothing like him,
Yeah.
doesn't talk to me like my real dad did. And I think that subconsciously I started to think, I need to get my real dad to come home.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know how I can do it, but I've got to figure out a way. And I think that for me, the way I tried to do that was to appease my dad, you know, to be the son that he expected me to be, which was impossible because, you know, as an adult, I look back and I realize that this was all of my dad's baggage and shit. It had nothing to do with me. No matter how amazing or whatever I was never going to meet that standard for him. So when you were talking about how you were like, you know, I buy stuff for myself because this is something that my stepfather didn't do for me.
Also for my friends and significant others, I'm always buying dinner. My exes, like, I'm horrible at, and this is why I don't do well with a lot of Koreans. They always want to talk about their feelings. Not just Koreans, but a lot. I think this is a normal human behavior is to talk about your feelings. But I'm like, feelings. So instead of being like, I love you, I'll buy them something out of nowhere, whether they ask for it or not. That's kind of how I showed my affection, my love language, gift giving, I guess. Yeah, I think it spills into that as well.
Okay. So I wonder why does it make you uncomfortable when people want to be expressive? I mean, because you mentioned clinginess is one thing. Clinginess is one thing, and I think that's a turnoff for a lot of people. But I think there's a difference between clinginess and simply just expressing affection, right?
I don't know. For me, I think it's just cringe for me. Specifically me talking about my own feelings. Maybe because I just feel like it's talking about my feelings is not worth it. Because I feel like it's a waste of their time and my time. Because I feel like for me, these are feelings that I'll have and that they'll pass after like an hour or two, right? So I talk to myself a lot in my head. I daydream a lot as well, and which is probably an issue because I tend to create situations in my head that aren't even real, which is why I always think the worst about everything. Is because a person does one little thing that literally means nothing, but I'm like, why did they do that? Are they trying to? They stab me in the back? Like, it's so weird. But
it's interesting because all of the stories, the fantasies or imaginations that you have, they're always kind of pointed negative.
Yeah,
it's always like this person's out to get me. They say something, you know. Where is that? Why do you do that?
Because I think I'd rather be mentally prepared for if the worst does happen. Then I'm like, oh well, I'm not surprised. I figured it would happen. I would be that way. I guess I enjoy the thrill of something going not the way I expected. I guess.
So you kind of set yourself up so that if the rejection comes, you'll be like, okay,
I was already prepared for it.
I was prepared for it because what you don't want is disappointment.
Yeah. Which is why whenever I can't even take compliments. And people, when you kept talking about my fucking nose, I'm just like, it's okay, it's all right, it's not that great, it's whatever.
So I want to circle back, and I think this would be a good place to, kind of bring the conversation back to, it's like, you know, what we were talking about in the beginning. There's this key theme of authenticity with you, right? Where you're all about be authentic as a creator, maintain the authenticity throughout the process. But I wonder, do you feel like you're being fully authentic when you have these moments of like, I feel this one way, but I'm not going to express it. And I genuinely do want to receive this compliment, but I'm not going to take it. And I genuinely do want to have connection with the person, but I'm going to just assume the worst about them so that I don't have to deal with the disappointment. Does that feel authentic to you?
In the sense of that's just how I am as a person in that way, I guess. It could be different depending on the day. There's some days where people compliment me, I'm like, oh, thank you, right? But I just see it as like authentic in the sense that that's just how I am, I guess. I don't really do anything about it.
So your definition of authenticity is I'm just doing what feels right to me in the moment.
I guess so, yeah.
Okay.
I know people always ever so real. You don't have to act like me to be real, I guess. It's just the way I am. I don't try to force it the other direction to try and fix it, because I know there's a lot of aspects about me that aren't necessarily good. But I feel like as long as it's not hurting anybody else, then I tend to just be the way I am, I guess.
Okay.
But yeah, I think authenticity. Thinking about what authenticity really is, and I tell you like, oh, when you're a content creator, the number one thing is authenticity. You want people, your brand should be you and your personality. That could come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. It doesn't have to be like me, where it's like I'm shitting on myself all the time, where I'm like self-deprecating all the fucking time. I think it's just what my audience likes.
Okay.
Yeah. As soon as they start seeing me start to take these comments and be like, thanks, then that's when they're like, all right, girl, calm the fuck down. Like,
okay.
Yeah. Boy, you better stop looking at me like that. I mean, I don't know what you like that. Oh my god, boy. Ha!
Is there anything that you want to say before we close?
For anybody aspiring to be girl, good fucking luck. Honest, truly. I know it sounds like I'm joking, but it's a fucking jungle out there now. There's too many content creators. The ones I find that stand out the most are the ones that are sure about themselves and aren't trying too hard. You can be inspired by other creators to want to, make your own content. But I think where the authenticity comes from is when I watch your videos, if I don't get the vibe of you trying to copy someone else, I think that's successful. You can have similar, there's no unique content anymore, to be honest. But if I get the feeling that you are your own person, you have a message you want to say, or some kind of like creative outlet type of thing that you want to portray to the world, and I feel that from your content, that's what's gonna attract me to you. Or you can be really fucking hot. So, yeah, I've always said that on YouTube, the most successful people are really fucking pretty or hot, or they have a great personality. If you can have both, honey, it's game over for the girls. But yeah, I think if you have one of the two,
okay,
it's a little bit hard. If you're only just hot or pretty, I feel like you have to do the extra work to keep people. You can't be hot pretty forever.
Right.
But if you have a great personality that people find relatable and personable, that will take you so much farther on social media, I feel like. Yeah.
One last question directed towards me. I know we've had like such few interactions, so I'm hoping that we'll have more and get to know each other better. But based on what you have perceived about me, what do you feel like is something that would help me in my journey? What's something that I can, what's like...
I told this to you when we were eating tacos yesterday. I know you have like that kind of like a role model of like that podcast guy, which I think is good, but don't let trying to create such a formal like podcast environment stop you from showing people. I mean, I was like pretty much talking the entire time. So all you did was sit here and be like, yeah. But I feel like if you can make content where you can kind of give some bits and pieces of I mean, what you're showing, it's not fake or anything, but I remember when we went to the Airbnb the other day up in Cheongju. Cheongju?
No, it was
Chungcheon.
I don't know, somewhere, yeah.
And the way you and Sean were like boxing, you're all excited about boxing. I was like, that's kind of cute. I'm not into boxing, but the way you guys were excited about like, and the way you're talking about like, hey dude, like you do this and this. I'm like, see, I like it when, even if it's a random subject I know nothing about. When I see someone has passion about it, I'm like, oh shit, I kind of want to know about this, right? So if you can channel that into your content, I don't know how you're gonna do it, because you're doing this format of content. But if you can somehow show them that side of you, I think that's gonna be what girl, like, no tea no shade, but you're fucking like interview stuff on social media. Girl,
the street interviews, you
put
mean?
the BTS away. People really be trying to use BTS for everything, and it's just like, that's not gonna. The interview, like, I feel like you can do that, but it's not gonna attract people to you. That's what you're trying to advertise yourself.
Right, right.
You know, so even if you invite all these people onto your channel, like me, you know, maybe you could be inviting other big name people. Do it in a way where people get to see a little bit of you as well.
Okay.
Yeah, don't let it fall too much into just the other person.
Okay. That's very helpful. That is actually something I want as well. Is the whole reason why I wanted to do a podcast on our channel in the first place is like I wanted to be seen, right? I wanted people to know me. So
which is when you were talking about how, because we were talking about this technically the second time you're filming this.
Right.
The first one was with Sean.
Yeah.
The idea of you and Sean sitting here talking to each other, I'm just like, how the fuck would that have gone? That's why you gotta have my ass up in that conversation.
Well, this was very helpful, honestly, because I feel like just having a conversation with you is kind of helping me kind of feel out what is like the authentic me in the first place, you know? And if anything, you know, I'm so grateful to Sean that he wanted to be the first guest on here, but I think in terms of helping me find my own voice, I think that actually this was like a great first podcast. So yeah.
I mean, I like to help the girls when I can.
Well, thank you again, Edward. And
this is where we make out.
That would be a fascinating way. That'd be a great way to get views.
Top
definitely.
comment. So when are y'all kissing? Oh, but yeah.
I want to be one of those podcasters that has a closing tradition, but because this is literally this is like the second podcast I'm filming. Technically the first, because the first one
the first is good lighting.
We couldn't use. Yeah, it's the first one with good lighting.
So
I don't know how this will go. I don't know if I'll keep this tradition, but it's just one that I wanted to try that feels like on brand for me. I don't even have a
you're not
brand
gonna
yet.
fucking maybe do some TikTok challenge, are you?
No, that would be that's very different from what I'm trying to go
I
here.
hope not.
3 different conversations that, since you have this fantastic imagination, if you can imagine yourself having 3 different conversations. The first conversation is you with your childhood self.
Not the RuPaul finale. He always be doing like, if you give a message to your younger self, they have a picture of them as a baby. Oh God, not this.
So similar to that, but yeah, if you could have a conversation with your, I don't know, let's say 7-year-old self, what would you say to your 7-year-old self?
To my 7-year-old self, move to Korea sooner. Learn Korean faster. I want to gravitate towards saying something like, don't feel ashamed for who you are. But I don't think I ever felt ashamed about who I am. Getting to the point where I am now, I'm one of those bitches where it's like, oh, everything I've had, like, I don't have any regrets. Like, overall, I feel like I don't really have any regrets because it shaped who I am today. If I ever tell my 7-year-old self anything, it's more like technical stuff. Like I'm saying, like, learn Korean, or like learn how to work a camera better. You should learn how to edit this way, whatever. But like life advice wise, can't think of anything specific.
Okay. Next question is, if you could hear anything right now, right? Someone that you trust, someone that if they said it to you, it would actually mean something. Who would it be, and what would you want to hear from them?
If I want to hear something from someone, anything. I almost want to say it'd be one of those answers where it's like, I want to hear my stepfather say he loves me. But it's definitely not that.
Not that.
I don't know. Because it almost seems like the type of question where you would want to get validation from someone.
It could be validation. I mean, I think deep down we all want validation to some extent from people. But
what about you? What would you answer?
Oh yeah.
Why did you treat me that way in 4th grade, father?
Oh, actually, well, here's the thing. I don't think my dad has the level of self-awareness where he would be able to even
know the answer to that.
I don't think, if I told him that, to be honest with you, I think my dad would be like, what are you talking about?
Actually, maybe I would ask my dad that, my stepfather.
Yeah.
Because my stepfather was quite abusive growing up. But like I told you before, I'm the type of like when people do stuff, I was wondering why. I never really did anything to him, so why was he such an asshole from the beginning? It was barely 1 year to even know him, and he was treating me like a fucking rag doll. Like, why were you like that? I've heard bits. The thing is, I don't really know much about my parents growing up, their own lives. But from the bits and pieces I've heard about my stepfather, he had a fucked up childhood. So in that sense, I kind of get it. But yeah, I guess in that way, I would want to ask that.
Okay. And if because he's going to be an honest answer in this scenario. Third and final question. This is going to get a little bit morbid.
Oh, Lord.
You're at your funeral, your own funeral, and someone's going to speak for you. Who is speaking for you at your funeral, and what are they saying about you? What would you want them to say about you?
My first answer, I think, would be my sister, maybe. I have two sisters, the older one, my full sister. What would she be saying about me? That'd be difficult, though, because I lived apart from them for so long. I think the only the type of stuff she would talk about was, like, how she knew of me when we were together. How we're always fighting. But, oh, God. This is going to that territory of cringe where it's like, I have to think about feelings about myself. I'm not sure. What I would say, though, is that what I would be nice for them to talk about me was just, actually maybe more so than my family. I think maybe even like, this is going to sound weird, but maybe like a long-time subscriber. Because I feel like my whole life is basically on YouTube. I wouldn't say I'm super open about every single thing, but I don't know. I feel like it'd be nice to have a person that subscribed for a long time talk about me. Like, it would be half sarcastic, but almost like celebrating my life in that sarcastic way, because a lot of my humor is very sarcastic, very self-deprecating. So they talk about how, oh, Edward's such a, he was a funny content creator or whatever, Because I would rather the speech go in a way of the sort of humorous type of, I wouldn't want the whole punigi to be fucking like, the atmosphere to be like killed.
I mean, it is a funeral, so
of course that because
right.
You can't do anything about the fact that there's a dead person in the ground.
Exactly.
So I'd rather them talk about me in a positive where it's like, oh, Edward, he made a lot of people happy. I love those kind of compliments where people are like, Edward, I don't wear makeup. I still love watching your videos, whatever. For me, if I can fill someone's time up in a positive way, to me that's successful. Right, so I think having a eulogy, being based around how I helped a lot of people in whatever way it was, whether they were sad, whether they were just fucking bored, whether they needed something to sleep to, whether they needed something to play in the background while they're washing dishes, which is Eddie. Eddie's on my podcast guy. Or, they're in college and they just need someone to listen to. I think that's what it would be about that speech.
That's great. Thank you for those honest answers. And honestly, thank you for everything. For the people who are watching, they don't know. This lighting that we have here, this is actually Edward's.
Girl, you better start investing.
Edward brought this over from his place, and honestly, like from A to Z, this literal conversation, this podcast is all able to be recorded because you helped me set this all up. So I just want to say thank you.
From one Sunday to a Hubei.
And just thank you again so much for being on this podcast and for having this conversation with me, because
anytime.
I actually don't know that many people would be as willing to be as just authentic as you were here in front of a camera.
Girl, I know the struggle, so I'm always looking to help.
Yeah, so really just thank you.